Good Tuesday to everyone. Hope you're staying safe and warm and out of this bitterly cold weather. I can't ever remember it being this cold before and so much snow. And we're supposed to get more snow, I believe, this afternoon. So hope you're staying warm and out of this miserable weather. Today we're going to continue in Anne Frank. We are ready for page 84, I believe. On your screen right now, you should see, let me make sure you're seeing this. You are seeing the bell work. We have been doing this words often confused for the last week. We'll continue through Friday to do this. Most of you are doing very well on this. Notice in number 2, there are 2 choices for you to do, so make sure you do both of those. We will do this until Friday, so keep working on that really well. It is good for you to know which word goes where. And let us go from here to, I'm not doing a very good job here, the next page, which is this right here. As we read today, there are 3 questions you're going to answer. And those 3 questions are, Ellie gives Margot and Anne office work to do. She has them. There's 2 things that she has them doing. That's on page 84. Dussel and Anne argue over this thing. Remember, Dussel is the dentist. He is the 8th occupant that comes to live with them. Page 86. And burglars, again, the orders were the usual. What were they not to do? So they add a couple of things. So look on page 89 to see what they are to do when they have to be really, really quiet and make sure no one hears them down below. All right. So let us look at our text today. And we are about to, this text only goes through page 91. So we are about to finish up with what they have given us. So that means I'm going to have to start taking pictures and putting it on there myself. Let's see if this page is on there. Share screen. There it is right there. All right, here we go. All right, so we're going to read pages 84 to 91 today. So let's get started on that. Sunday, 11 July 1943. Dear Kitty, to return to the upbringing theme for the umpteenth time, I must tell you that I really am trying to be helpful, friendly, and good, and to do everything I can so that the rain of rebukes dies down to a light summer drizzle. It is mighty difficult to be on such model behavior with people you can't bear, especially when you don't mean a word of it. But I do really see that I get on better by shamming a bit, instead of my old habit of telling everyone exactly what I think, although no one ever asks my opinion or attached the slightest importance to it. I often lose my cue and simply can't swallow my rage at some injustice, so that for 4 long weeks we hear nothing but an everlasting chatter about the cheekiest and most shameless girl on earth. Don't you think that sometimes I've cause for complaint? It's a good thing I'm not a grouser, because then I might get sour and bad-tempered. I've decided to let my shorthand go a bit. Firstly, to give me more time for my other subject, and secondly, because of my eyes. I'm so miserable and wretched as I've become very short-sighted and ought to have had glasses for a long time already. Whew, what an owl I shall look. But you know, of course, in hiding one cannot. Yesterday, everyone talked of nothing but Anne's eyes because Mummy had suggested sending me to the oculist with Mrs. Koofeis. I shook in my shoes somewhat at this announcement, for it is no small thing to do. Go out of doors, imagine it. In the street, doesn't bear thinking about. I was petrified at first, then glad, but it doesn't go as easily as that, because all the people who would have to approve such a step could not reach an agreement quickly. All the difficulties and risk had first to be carefully weighed, although Miep would have gone with me straight away. In the meantime, I got out my gray coat from the cupboard, but it was so small that it looked as if it belonged to my younger sister. I am really curious to know what will come of it all, but I don't think the plan will come off because the British have landed in Sicily now, and Daddy is once again hoping for a quick finish. Ellie gives Margot and me a lot of office work. It makes us both feel quite important and is a great help to her. Anyone can file away correspondence and write in a sales book, but we take special pains. Meep is just like a pack mule. She fetches and carries so much. Almost every day she manages to get hold of some vegetables for us and brings everything in shopping bags on her bicycle. We always long for Saturdays when our books come, just like little children receiving a present. Ordinary people simply don't know what books mean to us. Shut up here. Reading, learning, and the radio are our amusements. Now, I know I had you read those pages before, but I wanted to redo those pages because we see what Meep, or what Ellie, has Margot and Anne doing in the office. All right, continuing on. If I can get this to move. There we go. Page 86, Tuesday, 13 July, 1943. Dear Kitty, yesterday afternoon, with Daddy's permission, I asked Dussel whether he would please be so good, being really very polite, as to allow me to use the little table in our room twice a week in the afternoons from 4 o'clock till 5:30. I sit there every day from 2:30 till 4 while Dussel sleeps, but otherwise the room plus table are out of bounds. Inside, in our commons room, there is much too much going on. It is impossible to work there. Besides, Daddy likes to sit at the writing table and work too sometimes. So it was quite a reasonable request, and the question was put very politely. Now, honestly, what do you think the very learned Dussel replied? No, just plain no. I was indignant and refused to be put off like that, so I asked him the reason for his no. But I was sent away with a flea in my ear. This was in the barrage which followed. I have to work too, and if I can't work in the afternoons, then there is no time left for me at all. I must finish my task, otherwise I've started it all for nothing. Anyway, you don't work seriously at anything. Your mythology. Now, just what kind of work is that? Knitting and reading are not work either. I am at the table and shall stay there. My reply was, Mr. Dussel, I do work seriously, and there is nowhere else for me to work in the afternoons. I beg of you to kindly reconsider my request. With those words, the offended Anne turned her back on the very learned doctor, ignoring him completely. I was seething with rage and thought Dussel frightfully rude, which he certainly was, and myself very friendly. In the evening, when I could get hold of Pym, I told him how it had all gone off and discussed what I should do next, because I was not going to give in and preferred to clear it up myself. Pym told me how I ought to tackle the problem, but warned me that it would be better to leave it till the next day, as I was so head up. I let this advice go to the winds and waited for Dussel after the dishes were done. Pym sat in the room next to us, which had a calming influence on me. I began. Mr. Dussel, I don't suppose you see any point in discussing the matter anymore, but I must ask you to do so. Dussel then remarked with the sweetest smile, I am always and at all times prepared to discuss this matter, but it has already been settled. I went on talking, though continually interrupted by Dussel. When you first came here, we arranged that this room should be for both of us, if we were to divide it fairly. You would have the morning and I all the afternoon, but I don't even ask that much, and I think that my 2 afternoons are really perfectly reasonable. At this, Dussel jumped up as if someone had stuck a needle into him. You can't talk about your rights here at all, and where am I to go then? I shall ask Mr. Von Don whether he will build a little compartment in the attic. Then I can go and sit there. I simply can't work anywhere. With you, one always gets trouble. If your sister Margot, who after all has more reason to ask such a thing, would have come to me with the same questions, I should not think of refusing. But you? Then followed the business about the mythology and the knitting, and Anne was insulted again. However, she did not show it and let Dussel finish speaking. But you, one simply can't talk to you. You are so outrageously selfish. As long as you can get what you want, you don't mind pushing everyone else to one side. I've never seen such a child. But after all, I suppose I shall be obliged to give you your own way, because otherwise I shall be told later on that Anne Frank failed her exam because Mr. Dussel would not give up the table for her. It went on, and finally it was such a torrent I could hardly keep pace with it. At one moment I thought, In a minute, I'll give him such a smack in the face that he'll fly up in the ceiling together with his lies. But the next moment I said to myself, keep calm. Such a fellow isn't worth getting worked up about. After giving final vent to his fury, Master Dussel left the room with an expression of mixed wrath and triumph, his coat stuffed with food. I dashed to Daddy and told him all that he had not already heard of the story. Pim decided to talk to Dussel the same evening, which he did. They talked for over half an hour. The theme of the conversation was something like this. First of all, they talked about whether Anne should sit at the table, yes or no. Daddy said that he and Dussel had already discussed the subject once before when he had professed to agree with Dussel in order not to put him in the wrong in front of the young. But Daddy had not thought it fair then. Dussel thought that I should not speak as if he was an intruder who tried to monopolize everything, but Daddy stuck up for me firmly over that because he had heard for himself that I had not breathed a word of such a thing. To and fro it went, Daddy defending my selfishness and my trifling work, Dussel grumbling continually. Finally, Dussel had to give in after all, and I had the opportunity of working undisturbed until 5 o'clock for 2 afternoons a week. Dussel looked down his nose very much, didn't speak to me for 2 days, and still had to go and sit at the table from 5 till 1:30. Frightfully childish. A person of 54 who is still so pedantic and small-minded must be so by nature and will never improve. Yours, Anne. Friday, 16 July, 1943. Dear Kitty, burglars again, but real this time. This morning, Peter went to the warehouse at 7 o'clock as usual and at once noticed that both the warehouse door and the door opening onto the street were ajar. He told Pim, who turned the radio in the private office to Germany and locked the door. Then they went upstairs together. The standing orders for such times were observed, as usual. No taps to be turned on, therefore no washing, silence, everything to be finished by 8 o'clock, and no lavatory. We were all very glad that we had slept so well and not hurt anything. Not until 11:30 did we learn from Mr. Kufeis that the burglars had pushed in the outer door with a crowbar and had forced the warehouse door. However, they did not find much to steal, so they tried their luck upstairs. They stole 2 cash boxes containing 40 florins, postal orders, and checkbooks, and then, worst of all the coupons for 150 kilos of sugar. Mr. Kufeis thinks that they belong to the same gang as the ones who tried all 3 doors 6 weeks ago. They were unsuccessful then. It has caused rather a stir in the building, but the secret annex can't seem to go on without sensations like this. We were very glad that the typewriters and money in our wardrobe were where they are brought upstairs every evening were safe. Yours, Anne. Monday, 19 July, 1943. Dear Kitty, North Amsterdam was heavily bombed on Sunday. The destruction seems to be terrible. Whole streets lie in ruins, and it will take a long time before all the people are dug out. Up till now, there are 200 dead and countless wounded. The hospitals are crammed. You hear of children lost in the smoldering ruins, looking for their parents. I shudder when I recall the dull, droning rumble in the distance, which for us marked the approaching destruction. Yours, Anne. Friday, 23 July, 1943. Dear Kitty, just for the fun, I'm going to tell you each person's first wish when we are allowed to go outside again. Margot and Mrs. Von Don long more than anything for a hot bath filled to overflowing and want to stay in it for half an hour. Mrs. Von Don wants most to go and eat cream cakes immediately. Dussel thinks of nothing but seeing Lucy, his wife. Mummy of her cup of coffee. Daddy is going to visit Mr. Vossen first. Peter, the town, and a cinema. Well, I should find it so blissful. I shouldn't know where to start, but most of all, I long for a home of our own, to be able to move freely, to have some help with my work again at last, in other words, school. Ellie has offered to get us some fruit. It costs next to nothing. Grapes, florin, 5.00 per kilo. Gooseberries, florin, 0.70 per pound. 1 peach, florin, 0.50. 1 kilo melon, florin, 1.50. Then you see in the newspapers every evening in bold letters, play fair and keep prices down. Yours, Anne. And that's the reading for today. All right, here's our questions again. Okay, 2 items that she has them doing in the office. What do they argue over? And then look at what they are not to do when there are burglars. And I hope you noticed that in that little section on the burglars, they talked about turning the radio station back to a German station. When they go downstairs at night, they don't listen to the news on the German station. They listen to the news from other countries, from their allies. So it's very important that they have the same radio station on. They turn it back to the radio station that they listen to during the day, because that would signal that somebody is there with them. So make sure you answer these questions. Make sure you do the bell work, and you are finished for today. And we'll probably see you again on Thursday this way. Tomorrow I will record the pages that you're to read, and there's a writing assignment for you to do tomorrow. So read your pages, do the writing assignment. Have a good Tuesday. Please stay in out of this horrible weather, and we will see you again on Thursday.